Welcome to iAMradio number 22. Today I will be sharing a metaphysical tactic for meeting life's challenges in a way that allows for you to transcend them. Hey guys, hey. All right, let me get centered and settled. I had to restart because I lost my audio in the last one. And I had already started, so if you're rejoining from there, Shauna, what up, girl? Okay, so I'm going to be talking about how to meet life's challenges like they're for you, and the objective here would be to allow for you then to transcend them and most importantly, eradicate the pattern that keeps them going. So we have themes in our lives. It's, hey Amy, hey! We have themes in our lives, and generally they're too close for us to see. And I did this in the last draft, so if you want to do it with me, the things that are closest to you, you can't see. The things that are further away, they don't make as big of a difference in your life as these things, but it's really challenging to see these things. So you have to learn how to read the world around you. What is it reflecting back to you about who you are, what you believe, how you're behaving, or ask somebody else. And in asking somebody else, you'd probably want them to be far enough away that they could see you as well. So that might be a professional or somebody you know who's really objective. So the themes are important because your life challenges probably have a theme. And if you can learn to work with what the theme is, then you can take the information that's there for you and start to interact with it with less fear, more intention, and greater clarity, which makes it more functional on the ground. But at a metaphysical level, it helps you, like I said, transcend the pattern. So your power phrase for today is, okay, bro, what's here for me? And this is the question that you ask life. Hey, an example might be, I guess I could just use my own. So I have had a lot of movement. I've lived since I've been 2017. I've had 25 different residences, I think. I've had a number of relationships. I've lived in several different cities, had several different careers. Shit has always been moving. But I was too close to notice that wasn't necessarily not normal, but that it was part of what was there for me to work with. Hey, Peter. When it came to my awareness, I started to ask what's here for me to learn. So that change that I referenced was external. That was change other people could see. I had a lot of change going on in the inside as well, in an increasing speed, particularly in the last few years. And if you've been along for the Habit Book, so many people are here. Hey guys, if you've been along for the Habit Book ride, I started out in 2015, 2016, and I was like, guys, let's get fit. Measure your water. And then I walked through that, and then I was like, oh, wait, it's not that. You need to pay attention to the other inputs in your life. Are you reading enough? Are you, contemplating higher things? And then I was like, wait, there's more. And each year, essentially, my understanding of what influenced changed. And it made it really challenging for me to build something because I wanted it to be as effective as possible. And so if my solution kept getting bettered, then it was really challenging to keep up. So ultimately what I found is that at the root of change is identity. And so this comes back to my life theme as well. So the question of who am I is what influences what you do. Had I attempted to address the change at a lower level. So all the change I was experiencing externally, all the change I was experiencing internally, and at a lower level, I mean use force or will or some kind of structure to hold it in place, I would have kept busting out of things, because when I asked this question of life, okay, bro, what's here for me? What was here for me was an invitation to understand or have a relationship with what I truly am and what truly is. And when I say true, it's more like what can't be said, what can't be proven. You can only really prove false in our world. You can't prove true, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's science, I don't care if it's logic or law. You can only prove false, not true. So, and that's because the information that you would use is always changing. So you can have science pinned down, and then one piece of information comes, knocks the whole paradigm out, and all the things that you thought were true or not. And that happens all the time in science and technology and, whatever. So when I started to ask this question for life, it stopped hurting as much because I recognized that this was my course. So when I'm talking about metaphysical things, and I'm new to claiming the world out loud, which is ironic and funny, but that's part of my journey as well. Trash. I took off running. Where was I going? When I started claiming the metaphysical stuff. Oh, when I started asking this question, and I stopped fighting against life, it allowed for me to have the bandwidth to... It's like when you're fighting against yourself or you're fighting against life, particularly if you're some type of force, you're in gridlock. And fighting against yourself looks like, I'll make me do this, or if I try harder this, or wanting to do something and then having part of you inside like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. So fighting yourself looks like no motion, it's here. And fighting yourself can be fighting life. So had I been fighting all of the change in my life, and I had been, and I wasn't making any growth. Like, I was, but not in a way that stopped the pattern. The pattern kept continuing. And so when I started to say like, all right, okay, bro, what's here for me? I started to be able to explore those deeper questions around identity, around what is changeless, what is here for me. And that information is essentially my gift. Isn't that cool? So I've worked with lots of people over the years, and like I said, at varying angles and capacities, but for the last few years has been really around identity. And what I found is this isn't exclusive to me, and there are all kinds of sources external at the peer level or at the much higher level who will say the same things. What is unique about you, what is thematic in your life is your calling. And calling can sound so mystical or far-fetched. It's like, well, can we all be here saving the world? You can be a teacher no matter what. If you're pumping gas, if you're in retail, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a job that's like, I help people deal with grief, and that's actually their job. It can be anywhere you are. It really is kind of like accepting and acknowledging what awareness you have that others might not yet have developed, and demonstrating that it's possible first and foremost, but two, sharing it. I'm just in that space along with two kids. It's scary. Yeah, it would be. And I think when you're starting to ask these questions, validating how you feel helps a lot. So when you're fighting against how you feel, I shouldn't be scared, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be this, you're here. But if you start saying, okay, then things can break apart and move forward. Hey Jess, hey guys. Okay, questions, thoughts, feelings so far. this is a more abstract concept, so I'm having a little hard. This is iAMradio is for me to practice putting some of these one-to-one, like me to client things I facilitate, or one-to-one me to self I facilitate in a larger, in a mass format. You want to see the back, girl? I got this in like a back alley in Miami. It had a cool skirt. The skirt had a rocket ship on it, but I don't know where it is. And all that movement, I seem to misplace it. Okay. So going back to how to work with life's challenges. Some of the questions on the last iAMradio, I talked about framing, or maybe I think I talked about framing. And framing is, what questions are you asking? So there's something that's present, and you'll experience it through the question that you're asking. So if you wake up in the morning and you say, why am I miserable? As you go through the day, life's like, here's why. Don't forget this and this. But if you go through life instead and ask the question, what's here for me? Then you take that information in, you integrate it, and then you can move beyond it. I was just feeling this today, like, am I ever going to feel settled? So one way to not escalate, but advance feelings of settlement, is to be settled about being unsettled. And maybe that's what the meta will mean in my metaphysician title. But there is this meta level, this level behind, like above the conversation, that can generally afford or offer what we're looking for within it. So when you step outside of the conversation, there's another conversation, and that's the conversation of identity and belief that influences the conversation around emotions and behavior and life. So that conversation, if you can come to accept that you don't feel settled and be settled about not feeling settled, you start to feel settled. And then that becomes your point of attraction, or your pattern of vibration, or I got to get new words for that stuff. But it can then, it like has the same effect. Thanks, Shauna. Thanks for the flames. And one of the difficulties with life's difficulties is self-judgment. And the self-judgment can look like, my life should be different than it is, or the self-judgment might look like, hey, their life isn't like my life, or it might look like, what are they thinking about my life looking like this life? And all of that is this. It's saying no to what is. I can also, like, at another meta level, acceptance of what you have going on offers a lot of the freedom and the confidence that we expect to get from changing conditions. So if somebody, for example, is uncomfortable about the way that they look, they might think about all these ways that they might improve how they look so that they feel confident. But if they come to accept how they look, if they come to allow how they look without resistance, you get to the same you get the same thing. I'm confident, I'm comfortable. And then from there, at that, it's like, one, you're more aligned with the actions that would support that state of being. But because you feel that, it does seem to have an effect, at a physical level. So that's to say that what acceptance will do, what we try to do but can't do through action. So something like how you look might be a hamster wheel. Ain't never good enough. And I had that hamster wheel. I had a bunch of hamster wheels, and they were like nested. And it didn't matter where I ran. I couldn't escape myself until I was like, oh shit, look, I'm a hamster on a wheel. And through that, I was able to create a little awareness of myself because I wasn't trying to escape it anymore, see some of the things that were up close, and then start to work with life in a way that was like, you know what, I can skip this wheel. I'm not going to get on this wheel today. I kind of think that wheel's fun. Going to keep it. Hey, David. Hey, guys. So if you're just joining, what I'm talking about today is how to work with life's challenges in a way that you can transcend them, particularly the underlying theme or pattern, by asking this question. Okay, bro, what's here for me? It's like you've said before, surrender. You will know when you are fighting at rest, positive, shine, and being your true self, and things will work out. Yes. And so you may have been born with that mindset. Your parents might have helped you. It might have like struck you like lightning one day, or you might have worked at it. From what I found, that core messaging is available to everybody. It's just covered under a bunch of shit. So I was going to talk about conditioning today, and that's the shit that goes over all on top of that awareness, where it's like, if you're just cool and you let yourself be cool about where you are and what's happening, all the feelings that you think you're going to find at that job, in that relationship, with that money, with that ass, like, they're right here. But our conditioning, our culture is like, oh, you want blah, blah, blah. You're going to need this hamster wheel, and you're going to need this hamster wheel. And, oh, you want to be good enough and have a successful life. Like, don't forget this one. And so the process of connecting with what you've shared, Dwayne, is really, like I said, it's that getting rid of what you don't need. And then your peace is absolute because it's non-relative. So I talked a lot in the iAMradio series about unconditional love. And that's what unconditional love is to me, where it is, hey, like, this is my life, this is my moment. And how I approach my moment is essentially how I approach myself. And unconditional love is saying, like, this must be the best moment ever because it is. And that doesn't mean that the moment is only rainbows and unicorns. It could have things that hurt. It could have things that you're scared of. It's an embracing of what is without that extra layer of resistance or judgment. And through that, from what I found in my life, it's like, depending on how much pain you've had in your life or how many things you've had that hurt, like, the more cloudy your moment is. And you might have experienced that pain firsthand, or it might have been patterned into you through your parents. We're all patterned some by our culture and our environment. And in fear, in the cloudiness, fear is unfelt. Fear is, to me, an unwillingness to feel or being afraid to feel. And you might be afraid to feel what's already happened. You might be afraid to feel what might happen, but it clouds your moment in a way that you're not quite here. You're like on edge. And when your moment is clouded, you can't see it. And because you can't see it, you do all kinds of dumb shit. And you might do dumb shit to yourself. You might do dumb shit to somebody else. But basically, you cause more cloud because you can't see what you're doing. You're kind of bumping into things. So I forget what episode it was, but I talk about how to connect with that energy in your system and start to ground it to clarify your moment. And that might sound sort of abstract. I guess it would have to. I'm doing this with my hands and saying, like, energy. But shit if it don't work. And I've been able to access enhanced or advanced or clarified states of consciousness, not through like trying to, I've studied all kinds of stuff for years, but it was really learning how to feel what was in my field that made the biggest difference. And maybe that other stuff was necessary, I don't know. But what it rolls up to, and that's what I try to share in these, is like, look, been through the ditches, took the long way. Here's the stuff that you can use now that makes the biggest difference. If you start to work with the fear in your body, you start to work with the emotions that you're afraid of, then your moment clarifies, and the way that you're able to respond to the world around you improves, and then the quality of your decisions change, and then better quality decisions, less pain later. If you're here, you can start to see, like, should I trust this person? Do I want to go that way? Is this okay for me to eat? Like, it's easier to close feedback loops when you're available to them. But often, like, the feedback loop, we don't see. It's kind of clouded, and that's how we get stuck in cycles of eating things that we don't really want to, or doing things that have, like, a tail on them that hurts. Forgive yourself and others. It clouds your thoughts and judgment. Hard to do, but put the past in the past. Learn from it and control what you can in the moment. Yes, yeah. Guilt and shame will cloud the fuck out of your moment. And that's what I was saying with this self-rejection. I'm so blessed to do the work that I do. And I will tell you that from what I've seen, most people think or feel that they're the only bad person in a room full of good people. Like, they're the only one that's done screwy shit, or they're the only one that has thoughts like this, or they're the only ones that think they could have done better. And our conditioning is like, it makes us do the 1950s front. Thanks for coming over. Want some brownies? Where it's like right before that scene, they were like yelling in the bedroom, or there was like, hiding a snack in the closet, who knows. But the 1950s front that we were taught to put on in our culture is like, everything's cool though. And everybody, because they're not present and they're with their own guilt and shame, is like, oh man, everything's cool with them and it's not cool with me. And then the moments just get cloudier and cloudier. Hey guys, thanks for coming. So, guilt and shame can cloud your moment, and I went through like a whiteout. As I started to see myself, I got really embarrassed because I did some really screwy shit, and I didn't know at the time it was screwy. I was going too fast to see, and my moment was cloudy. And when I started to take inventory of some of the choices that I made and the effect that I had on myself and others, I was like, oh man, this is like, I am so bad. Like, I fucked everything up. And my moment got really cloudy, and when it's like that, it gets really heavy, and it seems like you'll never get out. So to me, this is that moment in the movies when they're on a long trek and somebody's like, I can't go on. Your moment can get really fucking heavy and hopeless. So I think what's helpful to remember, if that's a place you ever go, is that, again, you don't need the conditions to change around you. You only need the way that you're seeing them to change. So I also work with people who have depth in that they're experiencing things externally, but they also have a very rich inner world. And that means there's a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of analysis. All this stuff is happening behind the line, like in their head. And that tension is not separate from this question. Okay, bro, what's here for me? And that was also a game changer for me, because to do this work, you can only imagine what it's been like up here at times. So I essentially lost my mind and had such a far separation from the world as I had been taught it, that I could see it. And I was like, oh, and that awareness helped me clear my moment, because I could see it wasn't what I thought it was. And it gave me strength and courage and hope, because things aren't what they seem. But anyhow, all this work that happens, all that self-review, all of the layers of experience and understanding, it was a lot at times. And I thought that that was bad or wrong. Why can't I function like that? Why aren't I doing this? And then I had the idea to start to include my acceptance to my inner experience. So every time it was like a brainstorm and lots of rain, I was like, oh, cool, great. We're going to go into the lab. What are we learning today? And I started to be present to that experience without fear. Good night, Peter. Hope you and the pups and your family are doing well. I started to be present to that in a way that like made it go away. If I would have pushed against it, I'd probably still be pushing against it because I couldn't run. If I pushed against it, there was nowhere for it to go. So I have seen this in clients as well. They might have a really strong inclination to planning or to, they're able to feel deeply into people. They have these things that, they think the way that they're functioning is wrong because it's different or more intense than somebody else they know, or at least how they think they know someone else. Because again, remember, everybody's got on their 1950s front, which David just validated. And the 1950s front says, don't worry guys, perfectly normal upstairs. So I do find that, I forget what quote it is, but everybody looks normal till you get to know them. And I have asked many times while I started to share this work, is this just a me thing? Am I just talking, is this for me? Yes, I'm sure there are people that don't experience it to the depth that I did. Yes, I'm sure there are people that don't experience it all. And yet when you look at what our contemporary conversations are, when you look at what is being talked about or shown or demonstrated through film, television, memes, etc., there's something there. And the inner space, it can be helpful to think about it like a mansion. And when you first start out, you're aware the first few rooms. You're like, this is where my kitchen is, this is where my bedroom is, and this is the porch. What up? And then a life event happens and you get shoved through one of the walls, and the room that you fall into is a mess. You don't know how anything goes in there. It changes how you related to the other rooms and what you did in them. And it's kind of scary at first, but it's just more awareness. So that would be the same as zooming out and being able to see oh, I'm on that hamster wheel, and you start to see yourself. And as you see yourself and claim these rooms in the mansion, it can at first be it seems it's definitely relationship dependent. So your relationship to yourself. I was really hard on me, and I was very critical of self. So if I found a new room that was a mess, I was like, how could you have put this a mess? I didn't know it was there. But that's kind of the process of coming to expand your consciousness, where you take on areas where you weren't aware, and because you weren't aware, things usually aren't in good condition. You become aware, and then you start to clean them up, and then you get to live in that room. And it's cool to have more rooms to go into. It's really awesome. I'm super grateful. Every day I am grateful that whatever happened, that I'm able to witness the world from this vantage point and this stool rather than another. Because shit's weird. And depending on your relationship to it, it can be really overwhelming. So some of the rooms that I claimed help me relate to the world in a way that better serves me, better allows for me to function. I know you know, Shauna. It's weird out. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to circle back before this gets to be an hour. Maybe it already is. But today I'm talking about how to work with life's challenges in a way that you can transcend them ultimately. And this is your power question. Okay, bro, what's here for me? So no matter what life is doing out here or doing in here, rather than ask a question like, why is this happening again? ask, okay, what's here for me? Okay, bro, what up? And believe it or not, life will start to have a conversation with you, and you'll have an opportunity to see what you couldn't see before. And I use the example for myself. What was there for me was the opportunity to explore identity at a very deep or high level, or something where I am identified or have come to identify with what is changeless, where my life was so choppy. I've lived so many different lives and so many, nobody would believe me. One day, nobody knows the shit I went through, because part of my belief was don't tell anybody. 1950s front, mom's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, everything's great. Here's my win list, But anyhow, all of that had been impossible for me to wrestle to a place of stillness. It felt like it was just coming for me. As soon as I sat down, it'd get me. And so when I started to ask this question, I was able to see what the underlying theme was and start to work with it in a constructive way. And when you embrace it like that, life opens for you, because life to me is not this, when I reference God in my story, or when I talk about God to me is not this guy who sits on the outside and he's like, hey Randy, he's not like, yeah, he asked 15 times, give it to him, give him the pony. God is not this separate thing, bestowing miracles. To me, God is life. It's this organism that we're all a part of. And life wants to live. And if you want to work with life, life will work with you. At least that's what I found. And that process can include a lot of rattling and a lot of shedding to get the shit off you that doesn't serve life. And from my vantage point, and I started to talk about this a little bit in my last iAMradio, a lot of our modern culture and world is kind of fundamentally not off or wrong, because it's beautiful and perfect in its own way, but it's not holistic and it's not sustainable. And so all the things that you learn in accordance with that, it kind of has to peel off too, because it's not, things aren't what they seem, which I think is that's my mantra. I am thinking how fun it would be to make some of this stuff into little rhymes and poems. I'm open to feedback, but I was thinking about doing Rihanna's song, They See Me, I Be Work. I was thinking about doing it with a I Be Worth remix, because that really is a sticking point for most people, where they, at a deep level that they have no idea about, again, too close to see, they don't feel worthy. And so when something comes to them, they're like, oh, not for me, hot potato, I can't. Because it doesn't match how they feel about themselves. Life will slam you no matter what with time after you've gone through it. When you look back, you will understand why and what you learned from it. Hindsight is 20/20. Wish looking forward was the same. So I'm so glad you added that, Dwayne, because that idea of I need to suffer to grow, or it'll get you and then I'll learn. I stuck with that. That was one thing I was like, all right, bro. Because I was living in fear of life gonna just come and get me. And I was hesitant to build anything or do anything or stay anywhere or have anything, because I was like, life's just gonna take it, fuck it. And what I found in exploring that was this relationship to God and consciousness in total ownership, in that I really sought to see, or was willing to see, all the darkness I had within me, so I wasn't running into it in the streets. Because it's you ultimately, and again, it's you at an individual level, you at a genetic family history level, and you at a I'm a human level. So there are things you'll meet that aren't you, and like, again, life is a bigger organism, and like, God, I'm not trying to like invite any more bullshit, but I do think that at least I came to peace with that. If I should encounter something, one, okay, I gotta, like, I'll work with it. But two, like, now when life is like, hey, let me see that paper. Before I was like, no, this is my paper. I'm not letting go of this paper. I have to have this paper forever, this paper. Now if life is like, let me see that paper, I'm like, there you go. So I try to work with it again in a way that because I asked this, I know that what life wants me to be able to do. And again, I'm not meaning life like some external figure. I'm meaning kind of like thematically, like what life wants me to do is be aligned with truth, which to me means aware that it's always changing, and I am directly connected to source. This paper is an expression of source I get to experience, but it isn't my source for anything. So I'll just give the paper back now. Thanks for that feedback. I will do it. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is the 22nd broadcast. I wanted to do 24. This was largely for me to practice talking to some of these topics in a larger forum. And I also, and I'm open to this, I wanted to answer the question, who am I talking to, what am I saying to them, and why? And what I think who I'm talking to are people like myself a few years ago who had the like a sensitivity to there's more, but their mind was like, but did you fact check it? Like, but that doesn't match this other stuff. So I want to talk to people who are already open to these ideas and are looking how to integrate them with, or kind of like bump them up against the other things that they think to be true, or the other ways that they think. And then what? Freedom. Here to be free. And freedom to me means, like, again, you know who you are, which means you're not bound by thoughts or fear. And why? At this point, this is the hardest one for me, because I used to have a really strong, like, I have to help everybody. But now I see things in a way that's like, well, everybody has the toolkit, the inspiration, the direct connection. They're all plugged in themselves to help themselves. And so I truly believe, like, the happier I am, the more lit I am, the more that I help. And so I don't want to take on clerical work if it doesn't light me up, because I won't light shit if I'm not lit. So the way that I'm approaching why at this point is, in case it does help, I do seem to have a sensitivity or an inclination to this information. I do a good job with it one-on-one. Like, I love to do it. It's fun for me. So in case it does help the population at large, like, I'm here for that. And I'm letting myself handle it as an experiment to see, like, how, like, does this help anybody? And by help, again, I really feel that, or I have seen that everybody is like, we all have we're all plugged directly into the power source. And so you don't need mine. You don't need my information. You don't need my power. You're plugged in yourself. The only info I really want to give is that, and I feel that, or think that, or seen that I can give that awareness through my own embodiment of truth, which may look like me teaching this, or may look like me painting pictures of puppies. I don't know. But again, just in case having the words for it helps, because I got them, I'm going to give them and see what happens. Did you fact check it? You know? Aw. Thanks, Randy. Okay, anything for anybody else before we close today? I really appreciate everybody in the audience. I don't know if Instagram made this up, but I was looking through the creator tools the other day and they had a screenshot of a live, and the box of number of people in that live was way more than the boxes or the number of people that get in my lives. And I was like, oh wow, I guess a lot of people can and do go to lives. So when I have I'm really happy to have I recognize the names, and it feels good, and it's nice to have an audience, not because I need someone to listen to me, but it helps kind of like pull the energy through. I really find that there is a conversation, and it's like I have a bag full of stuff, but unless somebody walks up and is like, do you have this? I can't use the bag. So it's really helpful for me to have an audience. That's why I love this format. And so please ask questions. If there's anything you want to talk to ever that I haven't, please ask. And I really appreciate you being here. Okay, thanks so much.